All right, so are you ready to really dive deep into some AWS associate exam questions today?
I am.
Yeah. So
Let's do it.
we're going to go beyond just the kind of basic knowledge
Right.
and try to figure out what are the patterns that are common in this exam?
Absolutely.
What are the gotchas that people kind of fall for?
Yes.
And really get into why certain AWS services are the right choices for certain situations.
I love that.
Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah, let's start with databases.
Databases. All right, let's jump into question 300.
Okay.
This one's about a trucking company that needs real-time GPS data from their trucks.
Okay.
And they're talking about microsecond latency and a huge volume of data coming in.
Yeah.
The answer points to DynamoDB.
Of course.
So why is that the right choice here?
So think about it. You've got thousands of trucks sending location updates every few seconds.
Oh, wow.
That's a ton of data coming in really fast.
Yeah.
DynamoDB is built for that kind of high volume, low latency workload.
So it's not just about knowing that DynamoDB exists.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing when that speed and that volume
Exactly.
is crucial.
Yeah. And the ability to scale.
Yeah.
DynamoDB is built for that.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to question 301.
Okay.
In this one, we've got an application that needs millisecond latency for small reads and writes.
Mm-hmm.
This time, it's a general-purpose SSD on an EC2 instance.
Okay.
Why the different approach?
Because in this scenario, millisecond latency is perfectly fine.
Okay.
And using an SSD on an EC2 instance gives you a good balance of performance and cost effectiveness.
Got it.
You don't always need the most powerful solution.
Right.
It's overkill.
Yeah, so sometimes simpler is better.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to question 303.
Okay.
We've got a mobile gaming app that's sending score updates.
All right.
And they're worried about those bursts of traffic when, a million people finish a level at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, the order of updates is really important for a leaderboard.
Absolutely. Can't mess that up.
They answer SQS FIFO queues.
First in, first out.
Yeah, so SQS is fantastic for kind of smoothing out those traffic spikes.
Yes.
But what about that FIFO part? Why is that so crucial here?
So FIFO ensures that those score updates are processed in the exact order they arrived.
Okay.
So no messing up the leaderboard.
Got it.
It maintains the integrity of the data.
This feels like a pattern we might see again.
It does, doesn't it?
Question 316, another mobile gaming scenario.
Interesting.
Uses SQS FIFO queues to make sure that data capture is reliable and in the right order.
That's right.
So it seems like when you're dealing with high volume, unpredictable workloads, SQS is a good choice.
Yeah, it's a great tool to have in your back pocket.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about how AWS handles storage.
All right, I'm ready.
Question 302 seems pretty straightforward. A company is hosting a static website on S3.
Okay.
Simple, the answer enable S3 versioning.
Yes.
Why is that so important?
So S3 versioning keeps multiple versions of your objects so you can easily roll back to a previous version if needed.
So it's like an undo button.
Yeah, basically.
Got it. So always enable versioning.
Always enable versioning. It can save you a lot of headaches.
All right. But what if you have a massive amount of data to transfer, like in question 313?
Oh, yeah.
We're talking 50 terabytes in 2 weeks.
Wow.
The answer this time, Snowball Edge storage optimized.
That's right.
Is that like the AWS version of a really fast-moving truck?
Pretty much when you have that much data to transfer physically shipping, it can actually be faster and more cost-effective.
I'm trying to send it over the internet.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's a specialized tool for a specific job.
Now let's jump to question 336.
Okay.
We have a company that needs to store backups for 7 years, but they don't need to access them very often.
Okay.
The answer, Glacier Deep Archive.
Long-term storage.
What's the advantage of using this over, say, S3?
Well, Glacier Deep Archive is designed for long-term storage where you need data to be incredibly durable, but you don't need to access it frequently.
Okay.
And it's a lot cheaper than S3 for that.
So we've got S3 for general object storage, Snowball for moving mountains of data,
Right.
and Glacier Deep Archive for that set it and forget it storage.
Yeah, AWS has a storage solution for every need.
But speaking of need, don't we need to make sure all this is secure?
Of course, security is paramount.
Question 308 brings up bastion hosts and security groups.
Those are essential.
I know those are security best practices, but can you break down why? they are essential.
Okay, so think of a bastion host as a heavily guarded gateway into your private network.
Okay,
It's a single point of entry that you can control very carefully.
got it.
And security groups act like virtual firewalls,
Okay.
controlling traffic at the instance level.
So it's all about creating layers of defense.
Exactly, defense in depth.
You don't want to just rely on one security measure?
No, never rely on just one.
Question 309 takes this up a notch with automated compliance using AWS config.
Okay.
So it's not just about setting up security, but making sure that it's working how we expect.
Yeah, AWS config continuously monitors your resources for compliance.
So if there's a violation,
Can I get an alert?
okay, I'm liking this proactive approach.
It's the best way to stay ahead of security issues.
And question 319 reminds us to never, ever hard code passwords.
Absolutely.
Instead, we should be using Secrets Manager for database credentials.
Yes. Secrets Manager is much more secure.
This seems like a no-brainer, but why is it so crucial?
Hard-coding credentials is a huge security risk.
Yeah.
Anyone who gains access to your code can see those credentials.
Yeah.
Secrets Manager stores and manages sensitive data securely with encryption and access control.
So it's basically a high-tech vault.
You could say that.
Okay. I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Sounds good to me.
We've covered a lot of ground with databases and storage and security.
Yeah, we've made some good progress.
But there's still a lot more to explore.
Absolutely.
So we'll pick back up in part 2 of our deep dive with performance and cost optimization.
Can't wait.
See you there.
All right. Okay, so should we jump back into those AWS associate exam questions?
Yeah, let's keep going. I'm ready for more.
All right, question 311 talks about European users experiencing lag when they're trying to access an application that's hosted in the US.
Okay, that's a common problem.
Yeah, it is. And the answer points to Aurora Global Database with read replicas.
Aurora Global Database, that sounds pretty high-tech.
It is. It's all about global reach and low latency.
Okay.
So you can replicate your database across multiple AWS regions.
You could have a primary database in, say, US East,
Right.
and then a read replica over in Europe.
Exactly.
So when those European users are trying to access the application,
Their requests are routed to the replica that's closest to them.
so no more transatlantic lag.
No more lag. Everyone's happy.
Okay, now what about question 315?
Okay.
This one mentions reserved instances.
Yeah, reserved instances are a great way to save money.
If you know you're going to be using EC2 instances for a while,
Exactly. You're basically committing to using an instance for a certain period of time, and in return, you get a significant discount.
so if I'm setting up a long-running application or a stable development environment, reserved instances are the way to go.
Absolutely. It can save you a lot of money in the long run.
But what if my needs are a little bit more unpredictable?
Okay, good question.
Like, what if I don't want to commit to a long-term contract?
Well, there are different types of reserved instances.
Okay.
You have standard reserved instances, which offer the biggest discounts, but they require the most commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have convertible reserved instances,
Okay.
which give you some flexibility to change instance types if your needs change.
Okay.
And then you also have spot instances.
Spot instances.
Yeah, those are great for short-term bursts of capacity or for workloads that can tolerate interruptions.
Okay, so there are a lot of different options to consider.
It's all about choosing the right option for your specific needs.
Speaking of optimization, question 324 mentions caching on RDS.
Caching is a great way to improve performance.
What's the benefit of adding caching to a database?
Think of it like this. You go to a library and ask for the same book every day.
Okay.
The librarian might get tired of going to the back shelves to get it.
Yeah.
So they decide to keep a copy on their desk for easy access.
Okay.
That's essentially what caching does.
It stores the frequently accessed data in memory so it can be retrieved faster.
Exactly. It's like a shortcut.
Okay, let's switch gears and dive into networking.
Sounds good.
Question 314 asks how to keep traffic within a VPC.
And the answer is VPC endpoints.
Okay, VPC endpoints. Why are they so important?
They create a private connection between your VPC and supported AWS services.
So it's like a secure tunnel.
Yes, bypassing the public internet.
Makes sense. Now, question 322 suggests replacing NAT instances with NAT gateways.
Okay.
Why would I want to make that switch?
So NAT instances are like do-it-yourself traffic controllers.
Okay.
They work fine for smaller workloads, but they can become a bottleneck if you have a lot of traffic.
Okay.
NAT gateways are managed by AWS.
Okay.
So they scale automatically and provide high availability.
So NAT gateways are kind of like the self-driving cars of network traffic management.
I like that analogy.
They take care of everything.
Exactly.
So you can focus on other things.
Yeah.
What about question 333?
Okay.
It talks about VPC peering,
VPC peering allows you to connect two VPCs.
even if they're in different AWS accounts.
That's right.
This is great for building those complex architectures.
Yeah, where different parts of your application need to communicate securely.
Okay, so it's like building bridges between different parts of your cloud empire.
Yeah, I like that.
But how secure is it to connect VPCs in different accounts?
Security is always a top priority.
Yeah.
You have granular control over the traffic that's allowed between the VPCs,
Okay.
and you can use security groups and network ACLs to enforce strict access policies.
Okay, so VPC peering's a powerful tool,
It is.
but it's important to configure it correctly.
Absolutely.
All right, question 317 mentions lifecycle hooks for EC2 instances.
Lifecycle hooks.
Yeah, what are those and why would I use them?
So imagine you want to send a notification every time an EC2 instance is launched or terminated.
Okay.
That's exactly what lifecycle hooks allow you to do.
Okay.
They're like little scripts that run at specific points during an instance's lifecycle.
So it's a way to add some automation.
Yeah, you can automate tasks and ensure that certain actions happen at the right time.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about IAM roles.
Okay, IAM roles are important.
Question 331 emphasizes using an IAM role to grant an EC2 instance access to an S3 bucket.
Right.
Why is this the preferred approach?
So instead of embedding credentials directly into your application code, you assign an IAM role to the EC2 instance.
Okay.
This role defines what the instance is allowed to do.
So it's like giving the EC2 instance a temporary ID card that grants access to specific resources.
That's a good way to think about it.
Okay, now question 338 brings up CloudFront,
CloudFront.
which I know is all about content delivery.
Yeah, it's a content delivery network.
Can you break down how it works?
So CloudFront caches your website's assets at edge locations around the world.
Okay.
When a user requests your content, CloudFront delivers it from the closest edge location.
So it's like having a local warehouse for your website in every major city.
Exactly. It reduces latency and improves page load times.
Now, question 348 introduces EFS, or Elastic File System.
Yes.
What's the use case for this service?
So EFS is a managed network file system
Okay.
that allows you to create a shared file system that can be accessed by multiple EC2 instances.
Okay, so it's like having a giant network drive that everyone can access.
Yeah, but it's managed by AWS.
Okay, cool. But what if I have an application that requires low latency communication between instances?
Okay.
Question 349 mentions placement groups.
Placement groups.
What are those?
They allow you to group EC2 instances together within an availability zone
Okay.
to minimize the network latency between them.
So it's like clustering your instances together so they can talk to each other quickly.
Exactly. It's great for high-performance computing or real-time data analysis.
Now, question 375 introduces us to the world of serverless with Lambda and API Gateway.
Serverless is a popular choice these days.
Why have that?
It's all about abstracting away the underlying infrastructure.
Okay.
So you can focus on writing code without worrying about servers.
Okay.
Lambda lets you run code in response to events.
Mm-hmm.
And API Gateway makes it easy to create and manage APIs for your serverless applications.
So it's like building an application with Lego blocks.
I like that analogy.
You just snap together different services and let AWS handle all the messy details.
Exactly.
Now, question 376 mentions spot fleets.
Spot fleets.
What are those and why would I want to use them?
Spot fleets allow you to take advantage of unused EC2 capacity at a discounted rate.
Okay.
It's like getting a great deal on a last-minute flight.
Okay.
You have to be flexible, but you can save a lot of money.
So spot fleets are a great way to optimize costs for those non-critical workloads.
Exactly. They can really help you save money.
I'm loving these cost-saving tips.
Me too. Who doesn't love saving money?
Before we move on, I'm curious about something.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of services,
Yeah, we have.
but they all seem to be connected somehow.
Right.
Is there an overarching theme or principle that ties everything together?
That's a great question, and yes, there is.
Okay.
One of the key principles of AWS is building solutions by composing different services together.
So you rarely use just one service in isolation.
Right. You combine services like building blocks
Okay.
to create complex and powerful architectures.
So it's like a giant puzzle
Yeah.
where each service is a piece.
And by putting them together in the right way, you can solve almost any problem.
I can't wait to see what other puzzle pieces we uncover in the final part of our deep dive.
I'm excited too. Let's dive in.
All right, we're back for the final part of our AWS deep dive.
I'm ready for more.
Me too. Question 377 gives us a storage puzzle,
Okay.
an application with tons of data, but the access patterns are kind of mixed.
All right.
Older files are accessed less frequently, but they still need to be available.
I see.
What do we do?
So this is a good use case for S3's intelligent tiering features.
Intelligent tiering.
Yeah, so you can start by storing everything in S3 standard
Okay.
for frequently accessed data,
Uh-huh.
and then use lifecycle policies to automatically transition older files to S3 standard in frequent access.
Okay, so it's like having a smart storage system that knows where to put things.
Exactly. It optimizes costs and performance.
But what about performance? Question 378 talks about a read-intensive DynamoDB application that's experiencing slowdowns.
Slowdowns.
They need a solution that doesn't involve reconfiguring the whole thing.
All right.
What's the trick?
The answer suggests using Amazon Elasticache for memcached.
Elastica.
It's a caching solution that can really boost read performance.
Okay, so it's like adding a turbocharger.
Yeah, you could say that.
But how do you make sure that the cache and the database stay in sync?
Well, Elasticache integrates seamlessly with DynamoDB.
Okay.
And with auto-discovery enabled, your application can automatically check the cache first.
So it makes things super efficient. It does. Question 379 throws a high availability challenge our way.
Okay, let's hear it.
We're building an e-commerce application with a front end, a containerized application, and a relational database. How do we make this whole thing resilient to failures?
So for the database, they recommend using an Amazon RDS DB instance in multi-AZ mode.
Multi-AZ mode.
Yeah, this automatically creates a standby replica of your database in a different availability zone.
Okay, so if one availability zone goes down,
Your database stays up and running.
okay, so it's like having a backup database on standby.
Yeah, it's always there just in case.
But what about the containerized application?
For that, they recommend using an Amazon Elastic Container Service Cluster
Okay.
with the Fargate launch type.
Fargate.
Yeah, Fargate is a serverless compute engine for containers.
Okay.
So you don't have to manage servers or clusters.
That sounds easy.
It handles scaling and high availability automatically.
So with multi-AZ RDS and ECS Fargate, we've got a highly available architecture.
Yes, very resilient.
Okay, let's talk on optimization. Question 380 presents a scenario where EC2 instances are consistently showing low CPU utilization.
Okay.
What's going on here?
Sounds like they're over-provisioned.
Over-provisioned.
Yeah, they have more resources than they actually need.
Okay, and the answer suggests using smaller instance types and updating the auto-scaling group.
Right. Sizing your instances can save you money without sacrificing performance.
It's like finding the perfect size shoe.
I like that analogy.
Not too big, not too small, just right.
Exactly.
Question 381 throws a massive migration challenge at us.
Oh, boy.
They need to move a 143 terabyte MySQL database to Amazon Aurora MySQL.
That's a lot of data.
It is for a database of that size, they recommend using AWS Snowball devices
Snowball.
to physically transfer the data to AWS.
Yeah. It's the fastest and most secure way to move large data sets.
Okay, so it's like packing up your entire database library into a secure truck.
And shipping it to the AWS cloud.
Makes sense, but what if you can't modify an application to use different protocols? Like in question 382, they have a legacy application that relies on NFS for storage.
I see.
What do we do?
That's where Amazon Elastic File System comes in.
EFS.
It's a fully managed NFS file system
Okay.
that can be accessed by multiple EC2 instances.
So it's perfect for migrating those legacy applications.
It is no code changes required.
Okay. Question 383 takes us to the world of live broadcasting.
Live broadcasting.
A company has reporters sending live broadcasts from all over the world.
Okay.
They need high-quality streams and accelerated TCP connections.
What's the solution?
The answer is Amazon CloudFront.
CloudFront.
With its global content delivery network.
It can deliver live streams quickly and reliably.
Okay, so it's like having a network of super-fast relay stations around the world.
Exactly, ensuring a smooth viewing experience for everyone.
Let's shift back to security question. 384 describes a situation where private subnets need internet access
Okay.
for software updates, but they shouldn't be directly accessible from the internet.
That's a common requirement.
How do we achieve that balance?
NAT gateways.
Not gateways.
They allow instances in a private subnet to initiate outbound traffic,
Okay.
but they prevent unsolicited inbound traffic.
So it's like a one-way door for internet access.
That's a good way to put it.
Question 385 brings up AWS organizations and cross-account access.
Okay.
They need to share an Amazon Redshift cluster with a different account securely.
Securely is the key word there.
It is, instead of granting direct access to the cluster,
Right.
they suggest creating a snapshot of the cluster
Okay.
and sharing that snapshot with the other account.
So the other account can create their own cluster from the snapshot
without needing access to the original cluster's resources.
That's a much more secure approach,
It's like giving someone a copy of a blueprint.
instead of letting them into the actual building.
Question 386 wants to connect two VPCs in the same account,
Okay.
securely and cost-effectively.
Right.
What's the best way to do that?
For high bandwidth, low latency connectivity within the same region, they recommend AWS Direct Connect.
Direct Connect.
Yeah, it's a dedicated network connection between your on-premises network and AWS.
Okay, so it's like a private highway between your network and AWS.
Yeah, much faster and more secure.
Question 387 brings us back to performance optimization.
Right.
An Amazon Aurora database is experiencing slowdowns during peak hours.
Peak hours can be tough.
How do we handle that increased read load?
Aurora auto-scaling with Aurora replicas.
Autoscaling.
It allows Aurora to automatically adjust the number of read replicas based on demand.
So it's like having a database that can grow and shrink on demand.
Yeah, very flexible.
Question 388 throws a security curveball.
Let's hear it.
An application is using embedded credentials to connect to an RDS MySQL database.
That's a big no-no.
It is instead, they recommend using AWS Systems Manager Parameter Store
Parameter store,
to store and manage those credentials securely.
much more secure.
Parameter Store is like a secure vault.
Yeah, for all your sensitive data.
Question 389 wants to encrypt a data lake being built on AWS.
Okay, data lakes and security.
They need a solution that meets strict security requirements,
All right.
including key rotation and separation of duties.
Sounds like a job for AWS KMS.
KMS.
The recommended solution is server-side encryption with AWS KMS keys,
Okay.
specifically customer-managed CMKs.
Okay, so this gives you full control over those keys.
Yeah, you can manage key rotation, enforce separation of duties, and track key usage.
So KMS is like the ultimate key master.
It is keeping your data safe.
Question 390 wants to make a multi-tier web application more resilient to traffic spikes.
Traffic spikes.
They recommend using both AWS Global Accelerator and Amazon CloudFront.
Okay, a powerful combination.
Why the double whammy?
Global Accelerator improves availability and performance by routing traffic to the closest available endpoint,
Okay.
and CloudFront caches content at edge locations around the world.
Okay, so it's like having a global traffic management system.
That ensures a smooth user experience.
Question 391 talks about a Lambda function hitting its concurrency limits
Concurrency limit.
while loading data into an Aurora PostgreSQL database.
Okay, a performance bottleneck.
What's the solution?
They suggest migrating the database to Amazon DynamoDB
DynamoDB.
and provisioning a DynamoDB accelerator cluster.
DAX.
DAX is a fully managed in-memory cache for DynamoDB.
So sometimes the best solution is to switch to a different service.
If it's a buddy fit for the workload.
Yeah, DynamoDB and DAX are a great combination for high-volume, low-latency data access.
They are.
Question 392 about an EC2 instance in a private subnet needs to access the internet for software updates,
Okay.
but they want to reduce direct connect charges.
Makes sense.
How do we do that?
They recommend configuring a NAT gateway in a public subnet
NAT gateway.
and routing traffic from the private subnet to the internet through the NAT gateway.
Okay, so the instances can access the internet without those direct connect charges.
Exactly, saving money.
Question 393 was to securely grant a Lambda function read access to an S3 bucket.
Okay, another security question.
What's the best practice here?
Use an IAM role and attach an IAM policy to that role, granting read access to the bucket.
So the Lambda function doesn't need access keys embedded in its code.
Exactly, much more secure.
IAM roles are essential for secure access management.
They are.
Question 394, cross-region performance challenge.
Already.
Developers are experiencing slow read performance from a secondary region for an RDS MySQL database,
Okay.
and they need low latency replication.
The solution is to migrate to Amazon Aurora with cross-region replicas.
Aurora Global Database.
It provides fast replication across regions,
So it's like a global data teleportation system.
keeping your data close to your users.
Okay. Question 395 wants to design a cost-effective architecture for processing files uploaded to an S3 bucket.
Okay, file processing.
They recommend configuring an S3 event notification.
Okay,
That triggers a Lambda function to process the files.
so it's event-driven.
Yeah, you only incur costs when files are actually processed.
Very efficient.
Question 396, an application is receiving near real-time data from a third-party vendor,
Okay, real-time data.
and they're experiencing 503 errors when the data volume spikes.
503 errors.
What do we do?
Amazon Kinesis data streams and AWS Lambda functions.
Kinesis and Lambda.
Kinesis can handle high-volume, real-time data streams.
Okay.
And Lambda can scale automatically to handle the workload.
A dynamic duo for real-time data processing.
They are.
Question 397. An EC2 instance needs to be available for 12 hours a day.
Oh,
But its memory contents must be preserved when it's not available.
interesting.
What's the solution?
Hibernation.
Hibernation?
By hibernating the instance, you save its memory contents to an EBS volume,
And you can quickly start it up again later.
with its previous state restore,
So it's like putting the instance to sleep.
and waking it up when you need it?
Question 398. A company is migrating multiple applications to AWS,
Okay.
and they need to establish secure network connectivity from their data center.
All right.
What do they recommend?
AWS Snowball for the initial data transfer.
Snowball.
And AWS Direct Connect for ongoing connectivity.
Okay, so Snowball is great for migrating large data sets.
And Direct Connect provides that dedicated connection.
And finally, question 399. An application running in a private subnet needs to access S3,
Okay.
but they want to reduce costs.
Reduce costs.
What's the answer?
AWS Storage Gateway.
Storage Gateway.
It allows you to connect your on-premises applications to S3
Seamlessly.
without modifying your applications.
So it's a cost-effective way to leverage S3's scalability and durability.
Exactly.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We did. It was a great discussion.
From databases to storage security, networking, serverless.
We explored it all.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's always good to refresh our knowledge.
The key is to really understand the concepts.
And the why behind the solutions.
Exactly, by thinking critically and connecting the dots.
You'll be well on your way to not only acing the exam,
But also becoming a confident cloud practitioner.
absolutely keep learning, keep exploring.
And keep building amazing things on AWS.
That's what it's all about.